Griffin, why don't we just go ahead and get started? Welcome,
Let's get into
everybody.
this. Yeah. Welcome. Great to see 100 names out there to
Yeah,
start off. Can't see any faces. It would be really cool if we could see all your guys' faces, but
I'm not sure we want that.
no, we looked into that and it's difficult. But we do know that you're there. And we're super excited that you came along today. We've got a pretty awesome topic and one that I think is going to be a lot of fun. Uh, if you've watched any of our training before or seen anything that we do, you know that we keep it pretty casual here. Micah and I just like to kind of roll with it. Today is going to be an absolute test of just how casual we can be because the subject matter is literally how to deal with problems that you're constantly running into while trying to do social media research. And that means that we are going to find new ways to cause ourselves problems. Things are going to break, things are not going to work. We do have some backup plans and an outline and some stuff that worked yesterday. And you know what? If something breaks down in the moment, just bear with us and we'll roll on.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, Griffin, how many times have you worked in investigation and every single thing has worked perfectly the exact time when you did it? It rarely happens. OSINT investigations are messy, and sometimes live demos using the real interwebs can be challenging. But we'll work through it, and we appreciate y'all. There is, for those of you that are watching live, we are streaming to YouTube, and I'm monitoring the chat. So if anything happens to our stream, like, hey, I can't see or hear you or something like that, just let us know in there. We'll get it. I think there is a little bit of a delay. For those of you that are watching the recording of this, which will be on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, well, if you have any problems or whatever, just put them in the comments and we'll look at those a little later.
Awesome. And so, though, for those of you who have not been here before or haven't seen our stuff, maybe don't know who we are, my name is Griffin Glenn. This is Micah Hoffman. We are the team here at My OSINT Training. We're the two co-owners of the company. We love OSINT. We do OSINT training around the world. We practice it, we preach it, we learn about it, we teach it, and we live in it. So if you haven't been to our website, the myosint.training website, that will tell you a lot more about who we are and other folks that we work with. We have on our training website there a whole lot of different video training content. And we'll reference some of that throughout here, especially when we touch on a topic that has a much deeper pool of learning that you can dive into. Because obviously there's not a way for us to fit all of that kind of skill building into a webinar like this. So if you're interested in learning more about some of the topics that we cover today, then definitely take a look at our training library there over on the website.
Yeah. And just for those of you to know, and for those of you that are watching us live, one of the things that Griffin and I talked about before is that we do break molds as far as how we train sometimes. So we teach until there's nothing more to teach. And if that turns out to be 37 minutes or 1 hour or an hour and 15, we just want to convey the knowledge to you. So if you're expecting a 1 hour end on the nose polished performance, that's not this. Thank you for coming. But we're going to have a whole bunch. I know. Don't go.
No. Cancel the rest of your workday right now.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah. We're going to be here doing geoguessr and stuff. But Griffin, I guess, I'm Micah Hoffman. I'm the other co-owner of My OSINT Training. You can tell this is the first time that Griffin and I have been live streaming in a while. One of the things I love doing is doing more technical things. I love making tools, making bookmarklets. If you don't know what those are, we've got some of those scattered throughout our presentation. We're going to show you how to do some more advanced things. For those of you that haven't ever gone into web developer tools in your browser, I'm going to show you that. And also, we're going to be explaining how web pages render in our browsers and how we can interact with those different pieces of web pages to get at the good stuff that you need to work on your investigations.
Yeah.
Griffin,
So,
are we going to be teaching in person anywhere?
As a matter of fact, we are. Yeah. This summer, this June, if you've heard of the Layer 8 OSINT conference, that's on a Saturday on June 14th. The 12th and the 13th, the 2 days before that, Thursday and Friday, Michael will be over there in Boston with myself, and we'll be teaching a 2-day OSINT class that dives into a ton of topics over the course of those couple of days. We are offering that in combination with a ticket for the event that we will include for you. And so definitely check out that link there if you're interested in doing some live in-person training. We love that type of training. It's the most fun, the most engaging. And, this is nice too. Nothing against you all, but we really like being in the same room together. It just makes it a lot better.
Yeah, it's so much better. And I will do my best to put things into the YouTube chat so you can just click on them instead of having to transcribe them. Also, I believe we have closed captions available for those non-English learners. We have, or for those of you that just can't understand how fast I'm talking since I've had a couple of Red Bulls. Turn on closed captioning in YouTube, and you'll see the English titles right now, and you can follow us along. Griffin, this whole thing, this whole live stream was kind of your idea. What were you thinking when you came up with this topic of accessing things on social media for OSINT reasons, but not having an account?
Yeah. So we get asked all the time about how to conduct social media research as part of an OSINT investigation. It's just really a core topic of any kind of modern OSINT work that you're going to do. But there are times where the information that you want is maybe behind a login wall on a social media platform. You have to be an authenticated user on that platform in order to see this part of somebody's profile or this type of content or use this kind of search feature. And that doesn't always have to be the dead end for you. Now, in some cases, it will be because that's just reality. But what we wanted to do here was we wanted to share with you a number of different tips and tricks, techniques, and third party tools and things that we use to maximize what's possible to get from social media accounts without having to be a logged in user. For some people's jobs, maybe your policy prevents you from making a research account on that platform. In other cases, maybe you have difficulty creating and maintaining a research account without having it get banned or blocked, or where they ask for more authentication. Those are problems that are very common in social media work. And it can be very frustrating. And it doesn't, like I said, doesn't necessarily have to be the end of how much you can get. So we put this together as a way to show you how to build kind of a toolbox of things that you can have in your pocket to work out. And we're going to do our best to show you things that are applicable in different situations.
Yeah, and I love the way you put that, Griffin. We're always thinking about open source intelligence and the tools that we use, the skills that we use, the techniques that we use as another tool that you put into your OSINT toolbox. You might not ever need what you're going to see here today. We're hoping that you do, but if you come across that time when that wonderful tool that your company pays thousands of dollars for doesn't work, or you just need to get something, you have the schools, you have that, and you have the tools or the familiarity with the techniques that you can then look up this video, rewatch it, grab that tool out of your toolbox, and use it to achieve your OSINT goals. So stick with us, especially if some of the material that we're going over is kind of reach material for you. Stay with us. Griffin and I are going to try to do everything slow, and I'll be watching the chat. So if you have any questions, just throw stuff in there. We're happy to get to that.
That's right. So we've got some kind of key points that we wanted to lay out before we start this so that you just sort of get a bit of a lay of the land here. And the first one is that you can't always get to everything that you want to get to. Okay. That's just a plain and simple fact. There are going to be some things that are simply behind a wall that you can't climb without an authenticated account. There may be a search feature that's not available to you without an authenticated account. And that is just the facts of life. You can't always get to everything. Sometimes, though, there are different ways to get to stuff. And we'll show you some examples of that. But just keep in mind that this is not going to be like the secret magic key that no one's ever had before that's going to get you access to all of the social media information. Okay. This is going to be, let's get you as far as you can get without having to log in.
Yeah. And sometimes the things that we are going to be showing you, you can access in a variety of ways. I might say, oh, look, if I do this in my browser, I get a pop-up. But when you access it using your different browser from a different VPN or some other system, you're not getting that browser. That's okay. One of the things that we're going to be showing and going over is that there's lots of ways to achieve your open source intelligence goals, and we're going to show you the tools that are free, openly available to you to achieve them. So stay flexible and just think about this as taking in all this knowledge, and we're going to have some fun.
Yeah. And there's going to be a lot of different options, and sometimes you might have different options to try on the same problem. So as I was doing some research to put together examples that we're going to show here over the next however long, I would run into a problem and then I would make a list of possible solutions for myself based on what I know about how to work around that particular type of problem. And then I would try different things. And I will say too that we're not going to show you an exhaustive list of all the things that are possible, right? There are definitely more things that you can do to work around these problems. And I hope that we spark some of that curiosity with you. And also, if you're in the chat and you're following along and you have a tip or something, feel free to drop it in there as well. There's lots of different ways to mitigate some of these problems. We're going to give you one or two things that work for us commonly that we like to try. And then from there, like I said, you build your toolbox and you go on.
Yeah, and for those of you that are watching this video days, weeks, months, years later, the tools and techniques that we show you here may no longer be useful. They might not work. The
Yep.
internet changes, social media platforms changes, Google results change. So we need to be flexible, creative, and also tenacious in how we approach the OSINT goals of our customers, whether it's an internal thing or whether you're working OSINT types of techniques for other people. You need to be flexible. If one technique does not work, you try another. And that's why we talk about giving you access to these skills, and you can pull them out when you need to.
Yep. And our final point here for the webinar is a bit of a warning. Okay. We're doing this live. We're pulling up actual live real content on these social media platforms. We're using examples of people that are sort of more famous or well known so that it's rather public folks. But you are going to see stuff that we cannot necessarily control. And hopefully the live demo gods will be kind to us today. But just remember that we're showing stuff that is both real people and also really outside of our control, aside from what we've tried to preemptively lay out.
All right, Griffin. Yeah. So we've warned people, we've done the backstory. Let's talk about the tools that we're going to be using here, right?
Yeah.
So like what types of things are we going to be showing in this demo or in this training?
There's definitely going to be some themes here, and the kind of overarching themes for the stuff that we're going to show you is number one, leveraging search engines to both access content and perform queries on platforms where you don't have the authenticated ability to be inside of there. And Micah and I, when we get to this point here in a few minutes, we're going to talk about why there might be information available to you in a search engine that you don't have direct access to yourself, and kind of how that works in general. We're going to talk about third-party tools in a couple of different places, because for some of these social media platforms, there are specifically built open source or free to use third-party tools that you could use to access content, access profile information, and things like that. There's definitely pros and cons with those, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to dive into some basic developer tool stuff where we're going to get you into the source code of your browser, and we're going to manipulate what you see on the screen there. So a little bit technical, but also accessible for a lot of people. And then we're going to talk about some of the hidden data that might be in that source code of the page that you can still access even if you're not going to be authenticated on that platform.
That sounds great and all, Griffin, but we've done a lot of talking. Can we do some showing now?
Yeah, let's do some fun.
Let's do some fun stuff.
One of the things that I mentioned first is that we're going to talk about search engines. And we do have a very deep search engine course on the My OSINT Training website. And we won't go into all of what you can do in search engines, but we are going to start here with a lot of different things. And the reason is social media companies will often give access to a crawler from a search engine website. So for example, Google has a crawler, a spider that goes out and looks around the internet to gather up all that content that you can see in the results that you get back when you do a search. Well, those social media companies want people coming to their platforms. They want their content out there, right? That's a brand situation. That's a business situation. So they may give special access, or they may give access in different ways to a search engine crawler that an authenticated user would not get. So let me give you an example of that. If I go to Instagram.com, and by the way, this is the first time I'm typing live on the stream here today. We're definitely going to have typos, so just be ready for that. But if I go to Instagram as soon as I try to access the website, I get the login wall, right? I literally can't do anything. I can't perform a search. I can't see any content. I can't do anything like that. But from Google, if I type in Instagram, I'm going to start to see stuff coming back. Now, this is all content from other places. And one of the things that we teach you on our search engine course is how to query Google using advanced search operators. And advanced search operators are a special way to speak to your search engine that's going to get you better results. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell it, restrict all of what you give back to me to the site Instagram.com. And now you can see that there is actually content, photos, videos, profiles, and things that Google has gotten access to and crawled and giving me potentially the ability to go and get into. So that's the first important point there, is that just because you can't go directly into that social media platform right at their URL and start performing queries and searches does not necessarily mean that the information isn't out there in other ways. So let's say that I wanted to look for a particular user on Instagram. So we'll look for Fashion Jackson, who is like a fashionista social media kind of person. When I do that kind of search and I see that there's a profile there, if I open it up in a new tab, unfortunately, I get that login wall again. Okay. So that's because Google and Google's crawler has gotten special access to be able to go into Instagram and see some of that content in order to populate it in their search results. But Instagram recognizes little old me coming from my browser and my machine trying to go look at that profile. And they go, hang on a second, user person who's not a Google crawler, you need to be logged in. Okay. This is where our first set of third-party tools is going to come in handy. There's a number of different third-party applications that will access Instagram content for you on your behalf. And I'm only going to talk about a couple of them here, but there are quite a few. And there's pros and cons to these. So before you start using them right now, just watch the next few minutes as we talk about the good and the bad of these things. One of them that I like to use is called Inflact. And just a little bit of a tip, when I'm looking for a tool like this, if I don't have it bookmarked, I always like to Google it because I want to make sure that I'm not typoing and landing on the wrong website by accident. But it's this Inflact by Ingrammer. It's a marketing tool for Instagram. Now, it's offering you a paid tier, but you can do limited number of free searches on this website. And that's up here in their tools section. And they have an Instagram viewer section right here. They also have some other features available. But for the intents and purposes of what we're trying to do here, we're going to go to the profile viewer. And we know from our Google search here that we want to look at fashion_Jackson as our user. So we're going to do fashion_Jackson. And we're going to ask Inflact to view the profile for us. Now, while this is loading, I want to mention that each of these will do things a little bit differently than each other. Some will give you partial results. Like here you can see I've got a profile picture now. I've got somebody to look at. I've got information about their followers and following, how many posts they have, and the stuff that would have appeared on their profile page had I been able to click on it from Google. But down here, I run into an issue where some of the stuff is locked. Some of the content is locked. And this is one of those sites that will give you a free daily limit, as you can see. So they try to rate limit you, but they also will try to give you some content for free and try to get you to pay for services to get to their other content and stuff like that. But in some cases where I'm simply trying to verify that, you know what, that is the account for Fashion Jackson that I'm looking for, and I can do that by looking at a profile picture or some basic information, Inflact is a very easy way for me to go and look at that information. You'll notice that they will also have stories and highlights and posts and reels here as options. And when you click on those things, you see you get a sign up, right? So they are grabbing that content, they're getting at it, but they're trying to get you to use their premium service in order to be able to view it. And for some of you, this is a pretty cheap service. So if you're in the market to pay for a cheap tool, then maybe this is something you're interested in. But it's not necessarily the only way to get at this information. Remember, I said that we're going to do a number of different workarounds. So let's try a different website with this Fashion Jackson. and we're going to go to Anon Stories. AnonStories.com is an anonymous Instagram story viewer. This will specifically take me to content that is their stories and their highlights. So if you ever visit an Instagram profile and they have that colored ring around the profile picture, that tells you that they've got a recent story up there that you can watch. And one thing that I always teach in social media classes is that that is the type of feature in Instagram that can give you away as a researcher, because that user can potentially see who's viewing their stories. So you wouldn't want to do that from, definitely don't want to do that from your own personal profile. But if your covert profile, your sock puppet persona that you're using is also something you have to protect, you might not want to do that through that account as well. If I go to Anon Stories and I paste in my Fashion Jackson username and I ask them to take a look at what stories and highlights are out there, I am going to hopefully have my first breakdown of the day. Well, we're going to solve a CAPTCHA real
You can
quick
do
and
it.
prove to them that we're
Nice.
human.
You did
There we
that so
go.
quickly. That was
I
awesome.
know. So it wanted to check and make sure I wasn't a bot. So I just reloaded the page real quick. Sometimes when you try these tools, simply reloading the page will get you where you need to go. Now, if you look, we see the same profile picture from before, and this is our person. And we note that they have 3 stories, and the last one was added about 57 seconds ago. So while we're doing this live stream, the person who could be a person of interest for our research is actually uploading content that we were not able to see by trying to visit Instagram directly. And so there we can go through and we can see when the content was loaded, take a look at what it is. There's options to download and things like that. So this is just another way to get at some of the content in an Instagram profile. I really like this site. Again, this is a way to not expose yourself, not expose your research account and things like that, because they're acting as a proxy to go and get that content for you. Now, there are other services. I mentioned there's actually lots of these. There's one in particular, though, that I want to call out because I want to show you guys what to be concerned about when you're using these tools. So this one is called insta-stories-viewer.com. And there's many of these out there. If you just Google Instagram, anonymous viewer and things like that, there's lots of these ones where it says, hey, you can anonymously look at a profile and you can get information back. So I want you to stop and think when you're going to use a third-party tool about what your risks are. And in OSINT, we call this operational security. So if you have an operational security risk here where your system might be viewed, you have maybe ads or trackers being loaded through the website, there could be things there that could compromise you, your identity, your systems, your work network, and things like that. And you want to be careful of that.
Hey, Griffin.
Yeah.
Before you show us the Insta Story viewer site, one of the questions that we have from our audience is, will these techniques right here, these third-party applications that are going to Instagram and grabbing their data, will they work for locked profiles or is it only for open profiles?
Great question. So that type of question needs to be answered with an it depends on the features of the website. So I'll take specifically Instagram and specifically locked profiles, but apply this thought process across the board. So if they're using a feature of Instagram to lock their content down to only people that they're directly connected to, then a viewer like this that's third party will not be able to access that content. Uh, if they're using that feature, it's only going to show public content that you could get as an authenticated user because whatever they're using to crawl Instagram in the background is past that authorization point. So they're seeing publicly available content that you and I could see if we were logged into Instagram and looking at their profile. And again, this is entirely dependent on the privacy features of the particular platform. Facebook has similar privacy options that a user can deploy where they can limit certain content, limit certain audience, and things like that. Good question. Love it. So I want to show you guys 2 different sites. So the first is Page X-Ray by Faux Analytics, which is Dr. Augustine Faux. Very interesting man who writes a lot about ads and online ad abuse and things like that. But one of the things that it can do, I'm going to show you with the Insta Stories here, is conduct a scan of the website and give us back some information about what's going on behind the scenes. And while that's running, I'm going to look at a tool called Blacklight by the Markup, and markup.org/blacklight. That's another tool that's going to look at what's going on a website behind the scenes. And these are two tools that I like to use to sort of take a look at some of these third party services. I also will use this on website investigations when I'm trying to see what's going on behind the scenes of the website. But if I go back over to Dr. Fo's page x-ray tool here, I can see that it has scanned the Insta Stories viewer program that we looked at. And if you notice here in the middle, it's giving me information about the country data based on things that it sees happening in the background of that page. And if you note here, there's a number of Russian things, Russian related things. So in your work, it could be interesting for you to know that this website right here has some sort of analytics running or something related to yandex.ru, which is Russian, sort of like a Russian Google. And there's other things happening here. You can see that there's other ad tracking happening, but his tool has detected that these are Russian affiliated. So I show that not to say that it's, good or bad one way or the other, but that information is valuable depending on the type of job that you have and what the information is that you're exposing to the particular site. And like I said, I use this not just on like a third party tool, but also on website investigations. But I want to call out something specific here about this website that the Markup detects. And the Markup, their Blacklight tool, will also look at certain types of technology that appear within the page. And it has noticed that there is a technology in that particular page that could be monitoring your keystrokes and mouse clicks. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be nefarious. We don't know what that's being used for, if it's an engagement indicator or something else. But it always gives me pause when I think about going to a website or using something when this tool tells me that they could be monitoring my keystrokes and my mouse clicks, because that might be a little suspicious, right? So that's sort of this is what's available, and there are lots more tools like this available. But as you're using them, I would encourage you to take a little bit of time to kind of get to know what they might be doing, what they're looking at you for, what kind of things they might be seeing about your system and things like that.
So Griffin, before we
Yeah.
go on, we've got another question.
Mhm.
This question is continuing along the lines of OPSEC. The question is, do third-party viewers like this do better than using something like an incognito mode window as far as viewing the content goes? And what about that, using an incognito window and the OPSEC implications? Is it equal? Is it the same?
Sure. So a tool like this is going on your behalf, but not representing you in a theoretical sense. So it's going to take their machine, their system, their proxy, and go onto the social media website, in this case, Instagram, get the content that you're asking it to get and show it back to you without making that connection between you and the site. I will caution you too, because that made me think of something, is that some of these tools will ask you to log into your Instagram account, for example, to do this kind of thing. You don't want to do that, because all they're doing is, you know, proxying you directly into the website itself. Um, Incognito browsing is sort of an often misunderstood topic. And from an operational security standpoint, it basically does not do anything good for you or useful to you. There's so much more operational security stuff that you can do. But I will say that when you are visiting these big social media websites, they recognize your machine. They recognize the IP address that you're coming from. They recognize different attributes of your system, everything down to the time zone that you're in, to the keyboards that you have, to the language that you're using, and stuff like that. So they get a pretty good fingerprint of who you are as a user, and if you stand out in a crowd. And so don't underestimate their ability to know that you may be using the system that you also use your personal social media account on. And that goes deep into OPSEC, like we do in our course on the website. But that stuff is all really good information to have. So thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, and there's other questions coming in right now going along the OPSEC route. We're going to go ahead and pause those conversations about, will this work with a VPN? What are the people going to see? We're going to continue on with our presentation on how to get at that data, and then at the end, I'll go back through these questions, or if we haven't already answered your question, go ahead and throw them back into the chat, and we'll see if we can answer it then. All right.
Yep.
So Griffin, what do we got next?
All right. So in this case, I'm going to do a search for Valdosta's cocoa and cookie crawl, which sounds delicious.
It does sound good right now, right after lunch.
But I've noticed that there's some photos here, right? And this is potentially, and I'm going to actually look at their Instagram content specifically. There is stuff coming from an Instagram profile that mentions that type of stuff. And if you notice, this is a little bit different result than what we got before if we try to visit a profile directly. In this case, I can see that there's content loaded in the background of this screen. And what they've done is they've overlaid a pop up box in front of me and they've darkened the screen with another overlay. And they've said, we've got this stuff here and you can almost get to it, but we're going to make it hard for you to look at because we do want you to sign up or log in or whatever. This is a very common and very basic problem that you're going to run into. And we're going to show this a couple of different times. Now, in this case, they're nice enough to just give us the ability to X out of this box. However, not everybody does that. And we will later on show you how to physically remove this feature from what you're seeing on the page, even if this X does not appear as an option. But you can absolutely close that box out and you can now look at content, pictures, comments, things like that. Now, if you do try to do something like click on how many likes there are, it will pop up with a box that you can't just X out of. And we would have to show you how to delete that. So you'll learn that technique later. But I want you to start thinking about the fact that there could be, if this is your account of interest, or maybe this is your topic of interest, there could be content that was crawled by a search engine that is still available to you on the Instagram platform, even if you can't land directly on this user's profile page, if that makes sense, right? So, whereas maybe before today you would have just stopped and given up with anything Instagram related, I want you to think now about what could potentially still be accessed by you. So, all right. I want to, okay, just to show you real quick what happens. When you click on that, you do get the inability to X out, right? There's no X boxes there. Let me just show you this real quick since we got it up. If I inspect this element, and Michael will do this again in a little bit, but if I right click on it and I go down to inspect, it's going to open up my developer tools and take me to the spot here in the source code where that element comes from. And you notice as I roll up, it will continue to select kind of more and more of it as it backs out. I didn't know we were going to use the applause for that. I like it. This little arrow here in the corner allows you to select things. So I can kind of roll over this whole box and click on it and select it. And now it's taking me a little bit farther up in all these different elements. This is where, now don't be afraid of this because you can't really harm anything. You're just going to change what is in your web browser rendering here. So right click on this element and go up here to delete element and just get rid of it. If you continue to kind of scroll your way up, you see now that we've highlighted kind of the whole screen there because some of these elements are going to be the overlay that darkens the screen to make it hard to see. So now that I've done that, gotten most of it out of the way, I can continue to right click and inspect and look for these big overlays and delete them. So there. Now my vision is clear again. I can see the content. I've gotten rid of that stuff. We're going to do that a few different times because I realize if you've never seen it before, you're probably going, oh my gosh, I could never do that. It's not as hard as you think. And you can't mess anything up because at the end of the day, you can just reload the website and all that stuff comes back in. No problem. No harm, no foul.
Yeah, so what Griffin just did was the web server, when it sent him data, it added extra layers between his eyes and the actual data. And he just started to peel off those layers, just like you would take away like layers of paper. If there were multiple stacks of paper in front of something, you could take away different layers of those paper. And as you get closer to what you want to see, then it becomes clearer. In this case, there's a blurred, and there's a dialogue, there's some blurring or some dimming of the screen components. And as he removes them in his browser, it changes what he can see. But the data is already in his browser. It's already been sent from the website. He's not hacking the website. He's not doing additional requests. It's all just really removing those protections that are inside of our browser. Like Griffin said, if you're not getting this right now, stay with us. We're going to show you more how to do that in some other sites in just a little bit.
Okay. So we're going to pivot over to Facebook now, and we're going to focus on some stuff there. And the first search that I'm going to do on Facebook here is going to be that same site facebook.com search operator that I showed you before with Instagram. But now I'm going to ask it to look for content that says Griffin Glenn and Michael Hoffman, because what better subject for our webinar today than the two of us? Now, so let's look at some of these results, right? You can see there's content in here that's coming back. Google has gone out and crawled some stuff. What happens when we start opening these? So I'm going to open 2 or 3 of these, and we're going to take a look at them. You can already see the difference. This next tab has some content. The second tab has a login wall, and so does the third tab. So that tells me that some of this content is maybe not going to be directly accessed, and some of it will. And there's some nuances there. But I want to show you a little bit of a trick here. I'm going to zoom in here. This second result here, if you notice where it's coming from, you see that URL right there in the result. It's telling you that this is a photo result, and it's coming from the Private Investigators Association of Idaho. And if I tried to open that one, you'll notice it ran me directly into the login wall, said, nope, you cannot get at that content. But I wonder if I just take that URL and I copy it and I put it up here, but maybe I take off the end of it so that I'm not directly going into that particular photo, but I wonder if I could open up their entire photo library on their Facebook account. As it turns out, it's there. Okay. Now I got one of these pop-ups. Oh yeah, where's the clapping? Come on, man.
I'll get you.
You missed your cue.
I did.
And look, it's an easy X out pop-up. And suddenly we're in the PI Association of Idaho's Facebook page. We're in their photos. We know that it turns out to be this one, but we know that one of these has information about our subjects, Griffin Glenn and Michael Hoffman. And suddenly we can click on that result and we can visit this. So the funny thing is, Google had gotten access to crawl this specific page at that time and had captured the result. But when you and I, as the user, try to go there, Facebook notices and goes, oh, wait, you're just a person. We want you to be signed into an account. But for some reason, if we back out and go to that profile's photo library and start there and work our way into the photo, once we're already on the Facebook website, we can now access this content. So again, this is a new situation for you, right? We did use the search engine to conjure up the content based on our people of interest. But when we got that dead end, we didn't just assume that the login wall was the end all be all. There's ways to get on Facebook and get into that content from sort of an end around way.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we're going to continue talking about here. This is a Google search here that I'm going to run, and it was long, so I decided not to I decided to cache it here. It's just running this site facebook.com, telling Google, hey, focus on facebook.com/people. And I want you to look for any pages that have, quote, locked their profile. That has to appear in the results, and Pauline Wilson. Well, for me, it shows one result right here, which is super terrific, right? We can just take that and click on Pauline Wilson. Of course, I have this big box. But now you listen to Griffin, you know that these things are just like those filters that you can pull away. You can reveal the content underneath. If I can see stuff here, I can reveal it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing that Griffin did. I'm going to first click that because sometimes the X just takes care of everything that we need to, and we don't have to dive into the web developer tools. So in this case, I've got a Pauline Wilson, and I can see her avatar, and maybe that's the avatar that I recognize from my other websites that I've been looking at, and I can see, yeah, that's her. But sometimes we need to take that avatar and do other things with it. We might need to run a reverse image search, run it through facial recognition, or just see the entire thing in case there's extra data that's hidden in that avatar. So what we're going to do is just get at that profile picture. Normally what we would do is just right click and view picture. There is no right click view picture or view
What happens
image.
if you just click right on it?
Could we do that? Let's try it. I'm going to just click on it.
Oh
They
man.
locked their profile, so we can't get it, right, Griffin?
I guess we should give up. Let's close this down. Move
Let's
on.
give up. Or we can head over to My OSINT
We're,
Training's
we're such bad
OSINT bookmark.
actors.
What's that? We are
We're such
really
bad
bad
actors.
actors.
Yeah.
We are really. We can go over to the My OSINT Training OSINT Tools page. Now, this is a page, if you've never been there, we have a whole other YouTube video where we talk about using bookmarklets for your work. Bookmarklets, if you've never heard of them, are going to revolutionize the way that you work in social media. These are free pieces of JavaScript. JavaScript is a technology that our browsers are using every single day to do things like make windows pop out from the sides of things and blur stuff or do other things within a page. Kind of gives us that nice user experience. What we've done, Griffin and I, is we've come up with certain JavaScript bookmarklets that you can put in your browser that will do some useful open source intelligence things. For instance, if we scroll down here, the bookmarklets are these little buttons, and we have a little description of where it's used, and we talk about what platforms or things to use it on. So we're going to come down here to one that's conveniently called Facebook Locked Profile Image Bookmarklet. And what this does is it locates and displays the highest resolution version of the photo on a locked page. So here we can see a little bit of pixelation here, and we cannot gain access to that image. So I'm going to just take this, drag it, put it into my bookmark bar. You can see it right up here. Now, if I head back over to this locked profile, I can click this button, and what it does is using JavaScript in my browser, not making additional requests to Facebook, it says, hey, there's a picture in here. I need to grab that URL, and then I'm going to get the highest quality of it. So it will then open up a new tab, and it will make another request to Facebook for that image. Now, some of you probably can see the differences already. This is what we saw. This is what we have. Now, if I was to ask you in the chat to type a couple of the things that you notice about this picture, you probably would notice, hey, look, there's this thumbs up icon. That thumbs up, it probably was, this is probably a screenshot of somebody's web page, right? Maybe a certain social media platform or something like that that allows you to give the thumbs ups and counts them. And then down here, we have a partial name. All of this data was masked by that circle mask that many social media companies put over it. And if we had just said, oh, look, Pauline's profile is locked, I'm going to move on, we would have missed the potential connection to what looks like Ashley Erickson, who had this picture on their profile. And now we can investigate them. We can pivot to that. We can also use this image to go ahead and put it into other reverse image search systems or facial recognition tools. Cool?
Pretty awesome.
Thanks, man. These bookmarklets, there's a whole bunch of them too. Now, because we're on a specific part of the page, Other bookmarklets are not necessarily going to work because we don't have her profile brought up really. We can't get access to that. As somebody asked in the chat earlier, hey, can we get into their locked profiles and into private profiles in Instagram? The answer is using passive OSINT, which is what Griffin and I teach and practice. We cannot. Those private profiles are private. And so we can only deal with the things that are presented to us. Now, some companies may have API access or application programming interface access, and they can go into the social media platform and pull out a few more details. But a private profile is a private profile, and it presents us some challenges. So I thought this was a kind of a neat thing. You know, we're pulling up extra information from these images, these profile images. Let's just take a look at something. Some of you probably have already seen this. If we go to x.com, my web breacher profile. Now I'm not logged into any of these sites, and this is my web breacher profile on X. And you see right here, this is my avatar. If we right click and view it, there it is. But there's hidden data here, and some of you have already seen me do this, but for those of you that have not, I'm going to rickroll you here in just a second. All right.
It doesn't work if you tell them.
Well, it's oh, you're right. Okay. We're going to edit that out. Those of you watching the live stream, just ignore the fact that I said that. So this is a circle right here. It's a mask that goes over top of my square profile image. When I right click, open a new tab, what it does is it continues to apply that mask. What we need to do then to reveal the full image is on this page, do the same thing, open image in new tab. And when we come over here, we can see that there's some extra data that was hidden in the image that was masked because we were just looking at this circle. All right. I know it makes me giggle too. I'm such a Rick Astley fan. I really am. So that's kind of a neat, just aha moment. There may be data that you're missing if you're not going through all of these different steps of just viewing the images and downloading them. If you end up downloading this image and saving the image, you actually will get the image, the square image, and not this one with the mask. All right. So we're talking about TikTok now. And TikTok. Oh, no.
Oh, Micah. No, we have to cancel the whole live stream now.
Well, we did tell them that I was going to mess up. I think you did say that it was going to be Micah that messed up.
Could be anyone.
So let's stay on X. Let's stay on X here for now. Okay. Let's go and let's head back to Google. And let's look at what Google, a third-party tool, has gotten from the X platform about, well, my web breacher profile. Site : x.com, and we're going to do web breacher. All right. So this is using the advanced search operator site : says, Google, just give me the stuff that you indexed from x.com. And the response has to have web breacher in it. Now that's clearly not a picture of me over there. That is actually in the chat. Does anybody know who that guy is right there?
Oh yeah. He's far more handsome than you.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. This is the last live stream that we'll be doing together. So we've got some information here. You know, if you're a frequent Googler, that it will grab some of the profile pictures here. And so some of the profile pictures, the other things that I've shared, this helping people grow skills to achieve their goals, that's in my bio. So without even touching the website, the x.com website, we have some of the data from my profile, which is great. And if I click on this, we've already seen that it will pull up my profile. Well, some of you might not know that before x.com was X, it was actually a different platform. Griffin, do you remember what it was called?
It's the only thing that I know it as. It's still called Twitter even today.
I still call it Twitter.
Do the X thing.
Yeah.
Such a grumpy old man.
So we have to think about how the websites actually grab the data. Google, Bing, Yandex, they're search engines. They're constantly scanning the internet. When they scan something, they will grab it, and sometimes they will cache it, and they will show it to you in the results. That's basically how search engines work. Since X went through it and Twitter went through a name change to X, some of the data about profiles that you might be looking up are actually tagged under twitter.com and not x.com. Why? Well, maybe the person hasn't changed anything on their profile since the X platform was renamed. Or maybe nobody had, or there's no reason for it to grab that data, or other reasons. But if we go to and we put in the old name of the website, twitter.com, quote, web reacher, we can see that here we've got this twitter.com web reacher thing. This has the same profile image, and as many of you probably will have guessed, it will automatically redirect to x.com. But some of you see another profile that I have. This is Micah Hoffman on X. And if we click on that, what happens? It wants me to sign into X, but we do have a little X here. Whoops.
Did you notice though in the background what happened? I wonder if any of the people watching at home noticed.
I bet some of them did. And if you're actually watching this video on YouTube after the live stream, pause, go back. Let me show you again. When I click, don't blink now. Ready? In 3, 2, 1, I'm going to show. Okay, I can't count down and then not show them. I'm going to show you. What will happen is Google will send me over to the X platform. It'll bring up the profile, then X checks and says, hey, Micah's browser is not logged in. We need to redirect him to the login screen. So let's check this out. I click this. It brings it up there. Oh, you saw some stuff. And now X is like, nope, you can't see it. And if we look at the URL, we see x.com iFlow login. And what that basically, and then at the end it says redirect after login to the Micah Hoffman profile. Well, this whole video is about not logging in. So of course, we're going to show you kind of a cool technical way in order to get at that data. The technical way, let's see. Griffin, should we do the...
And then I'll show you a non-technical way.
Okay, yeah, I'll do the technical way and then you'll do the non-technical. That's good. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the web developer tools. So in this window, I'm going to, I do the shortcuts a lot. I'm sorry. I'm going to launch the web developer tools. For those of you that are not familiar, I'm using Chrome. I'm using Chrome now. I can go into more tools and then web developer tools, or I can hit Control-Shift-I, or I can hit F12. Now, your web developer tools may look a little different than mine. It might be over on the right-hand side of the screen, not showing all of these tabs. I get it. We do have a web developer tools course on My OSINT Training that can help you reformat. But you can move your web developer tools and do these same techniques. All you have to do is come over, I believe, right here. It'll show up on right there, these 3 dots. And I like showing it on the bottom of the page because, gosh, this is so much easier to see with the width of my screen. So let's go back through the process of Google query, clicking on the link, it goes to X, hits my profile, and then redirects me to the login screen. Before we do that, I want you to do something very special. See right here, this preserve log. That preserve log is really important because the web developer tools will refresh and erase all of the content in the network tab when the page reloads. So if I click from Google, let's try it without it, okay? I'm going to go back to the Google. Here's the Google. I'm going to click this one for the Micah Hoffman profile. And you can see we're already getting some things in here. I'm going to hit all. All right, so we're getting some responses. What this network tab does is it's just watching my browser. And when the web page says, hey, grab this image, it'll say, hey, I'm grabbing this image. Or when my browser says, I need to grab this web page or this JavaScript so that it can be shown on your browser, this reveals all of those web calls. So let's go ahead and do this. I've got my Google up here. So watch right here. What will happen is I will click this. It'll load the page. Then it'll wipe all that out and it'll redirect me. So I click here, load the page, redirect me. There, it loaded. Now it redirected me. And I'm going to hit the stop recording button so that we can take a look at this without it continuing. So this is .js. These are JavaScript things. These are JPEGs or images. Look, we can even take a look at some of this stuff. This is some of what flashed on my screen. If I scroll up and up and up, we see over here that I asked for the twitter.com/Micah Hoffman profile. This 302 is a redirect. It says, oh, you're not authenticated, Micah. I need you to go over here to this, and it redirects me to, actually, this says go from Twitter to X. And then when I got to X, it said, hey, man, you're not authenticated. You need to log in. Let's watch what happens when I turn on the preserve log and do the same thing. What will happen is I'll be able to capture that stuff that just flashed on the screen real quick, and then we'll be able to look at it. So I'm going to hit back. I'm going to turn on recording, and I'm going to delete all of this stuff. I'm also going to filter this just to make it a little bit easier for us to see. These filters right here allow us to only look at certain pieces of browser information that gets sent to or from our browser. For instance, the JS, it would allow me to see just those JavaScript files that are requested and received. Fonts, images, you get it. I'm going to choose doc right here, which is a HTML document. Let's rerun this query. So hit this. I've got preserved on. I'm recording. Click that. And we see the redirect here from Twitter to X. And then from X, it says, hey, Micah's not logged in. You need to do these other things. Go over to this page. But we have this Micah Hoffman page here. And this Micah Hoffman page may contain certain information. In this case, it doesn't. But what does is the stuff that comes right after it. So I'm going to scroll back. So here's x.com. Here's all the JavaScript. One of these pieces right here, modules audio, shared loader. Griffin, this was a lot faster when I did this.
I know. I like to switch over to images to show this because I think there's only like a half a dozen of those.
Yeah, but I was going to show this. Let me show this first.
My brain's already melted from how amazingly technical this can be.
I didn't get any cheering. let me just tell you that. All right, so let's do the fetch XHR first. What this does is when the page loads, your browser may make some other requests to fill in other data that the website needs you to load. So when my browser said, hey, I need Micah Hoffman profile on X, it loaded and then said, hey, we need to fill in that detail about his profile. And so my browser made a request, and that's this user by screen name. You see all that extra stuff there? If I click this, it gives me a response. And if I scroll down, you remember my bio said, just a guy with too many projects trying to make his way through life. What we've got here is the JSON or JavaScript object notation that makes up that content. So this is data that would show up on that web page for my profile. We also see how many favorites I have, the followers. There's my name. There's the tweets ID. Here's other stuff as well. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, that's great and all, but like Griffin said, how do I know this is the real profile? Well, we can come over here to images. Do you remember seeing something that looked like this? Like these shoes? Yeah, this was my profile picture. And this was the picture of, that was my banner image as well. So it hit my browser captured it because I have the preserved log on. And now I can just walk back through those images, that JSON data to extract what I need from that profile. Is it 100% perfect? Nah, it doesn't look the same as that profile. Is it better to have a research account or a sock puppet on the platform so you get that? How does this look? Yeah, absolutely. But that's not this live stream. So I'm going to say no.
And for those of you who are less technical like me, I've been dying this whole time because As much as I've seen the developer tools and gone into those details before, I still have a very surface level knowledge when it comes to that stuff. This is something I figured out a long time ago, that still works. I tested it as recently as while you guys were watching Micah. And the way what I like to reference back to is, do you remember when we ran into the problem with Facebook a little while ago, where we wanted to visit that particular photo image where our upcoming talk for the PI Association was being advertised, and when we went to visit that directly, we couldn't land on it. But when we backed out to looking at the photo album for that particular Facebook profile, we could get into Facebook that way, and then we could visit the content. This is a very similar kind of methodology. And this is, again, we're building that toolbox, but you bring the creativity and the tenacity to go, oh, I wonder if this type of thing could work. So we already know that Micah's profile is twitter.com, Micah Hoffman, or x.com, Micah Hoffman. But what I've learned is that if you can find a status, a post, a tweet, or something from the profile that you're interested in, that content will be available to you to access directly. So as you can see, I've right clicked and opened that web result and I've gotten the post. And so now I'm in, right? I'm in Twitter, which is actually redirected to x.com. And from here, if I click on Micah's profile page, it takes me to the profile page. And look, it's our favorite shape of the day. We do that X, and now Twitter has figured out that there's something that we can do to get past their system. So you remember from running into this problem before what we're going to do, right? So they give us the X, sort of a tease, it takes it away. But we know that that content is there. It's in our screen, it's loaded in our web browser. So how do we get rid of this big pop-up box without using the X and getting redirected back? We right click on it, inspect it. We go down into our developer tools and we roll up until we've got the whole box
Hey,
highlighted
Griffin,
forward.
one of the things that somebody asked in the chat, in the live stream chat, was how do you know what to remove? Is it just trial and error? How do you, what happens if you remove too much?
Mm-hmm. So if you remove too much, no harm. Just reload your web page. No problem. Thank you. What I like to do, I'm a right click and inspect, but then as you see, I've got to kind of work my way up the tree a little bit to make sure that I get all of the box that's there. You can also use that little picker selector that I mentioned last time, this little icon here in the corner, click on that, and it will let you select either I could delete just this text or just this bubble. But if I hover over this box in just the right place, eventually it will give me the whole thing. I personally like to just go down in here to the source code. And if you're watching this on replay, just look closely at where I am. Right click on that line because it'll grab that and everything nested underneath it and develop and delete that all for me. And then from here, the next one up from there is actually that kind of hazy gray overlay. And look at that. Deleted it and it's gone. So now
that looks pretty, Griffin.
Yeah. So remember earlier we went from Google and we tried to go directly to Micah's webpage here for his profile, his Micah Hoffman profile, and it would redirect us to that login wall. Micah showed you how to capture it using the developer tools. I'm showing you how to get at it by going through a status first, by finding content posted by that user, going into that status, clicking on their profile once you're already inside the network, inside the platform, and then landing here and just removing that little annoying object. So now I can see, as it would appear on the screen, Micah's profile and so on. All right. Real quick, though, keeping in the theme of Twitter, there are third-party tools. And third-party tools for Twitter are a little bit dicey. And I say that because Twitter, X, whatever, has kind of actively gone after shutting some of them down or at least curtailing their access and things. So there's some usability issues there sometimes, but there are a few that still work okay. One of them, this SOTWE tool, SOTWE.com, is pretty good. You can go in here and you can say, I want to look at the web breacher profile. And it will say,
picking on me, man.
Hey, which do you mean? Well, I want you to have some more followers. You only have 23,000 followers on Twitter. I want you to have more. So here it will access profiles for you on your behalf. And this is that proxy tool that will go out there and get it. But I do want you to notice something here. And earlier, when we visited Micah's profile directly on the website, he had some other content in his bio that included a link to go to another website. It was his LinkedIn profile. He had that included. This tool is not grabbing that link and not displaying it in there. And if you see, you'll go through, if you looked at other results and other profiles, you would notice that if people have external links in their profiles that go to other websites, other services, or whatever, that are not Twitter links or X links, this tool will not grab them. There's another tool for Twitter that's a third party tool. It was called Knitter, Nitter, and it's gone up and down over time. But this site, I don't know if it's Tweet or Twit, but it's TWIIIT.com, will look for an active instance of Knitter, and it will then, it'll tell you right now there's 2 instances online, and it will try to give you one that's not currently rate limited, and it will try to let you access that. So we'll use this service, and now it's taking me to a Knitter instance that will go and it'll access this. So you can see the N at the top. That's indicative of it coming from a Knitter service. But if you look down here in Micah's profile, you see that they are rendering that content, that LinkedIn profile link. So notice here, he's got this content here. It stops at Blue Sky. There's nothing else. But when we use this tool, it doesn't just stop at Blue Sky. It's got this link here. And these are kind of the nuances of working with these tools repeatedly and understanding what they do and how they do it, because they're not all created equal. And like I said, when we looked at the Instagram third-party tools, some will give you certain content and restrict others and so on. You really, when you're using something that's not you putting your eyes on it directly or putting your browser on it directly, you really have to understand what is and isn't happening with the tool or service that you're using. All right. Fun stuff. So as we get close to winding this webinar down, and I know everybody's sad, I am sad because this has been a lot of fun, we're going to talk about some LinkedIn stuff. Now, LinkedIn can be very tricky. Definitely no denying that. If you've tried to go and look at people's LinkedIn profiles, you may have run into some of these problems that we've been showing throughout the webinar of the login pop-up that comes up or not being able to access certain content and things like that. So I'm going to give you a couple of tricks here. Let's say that Micah is my person of interest and I'm looking for a LinkedIn profile for him. And I do a Google search. And maybe I don't know what Micah looks like. And this is a not very helpful result, right? Because there's actually a lot of different Micah Hoffman profiles here.
There are.
Yeah. And I don't know which one might be my person, unless I can see their profile picture. And a lot of times when you have this type of result, and this, by the way, is kind of a hit or miss thing, but oftentimes when you click on these results, it'll say, oh no, you can't look at this profile. You need to log in. I don't know if that will happen here or not. Okay. So on this particular one, I don't know, that doesn't really look like you. We're getting just the pop-up and you can scroll through. A lot of times I will say that they'll give you the login wall. You can see down here that they're also redacting some of that information. I'll bet Micah knows how we can get at the data that's in there.
Yeah.
But I want to show you just a real simple trick for something here. So we're going to take our query and we're going to go over to Bing. Now, a lot of people might discount other search engines like Bing, but there's something unique about Bing when it comes to LinkedIn. Micah, do you know what it is? What?
It's owned by its parent company owns that.
That's right. Microsoft owns Bing and LinkedIn. And so their user experience when you're looking at LinkedIn profiles through their search engine is different. Excuse me. As you can see, they are providing more content in a different way than what Google did, right? They're actually putting profile pictures right alongside the results. And so if I don't know which one of these is Micah yet, but I know what he looks like, maybe from my other research, or maybe I have a photo of him as my person of interest, I can right away go, wait a minute, that's the person I want to be looking at here. And you can see there's other pictures of him, other people, and so on. So one of the things I always encourage people to do when they're doing LinkedIn research, but they're not able to log into a LinkedIn account and they run into these issues, is go through Bing as a way to get at results that might be a little bit better, a little bit more robust, a little bit different. Yeah. So first Bing tip of the day, and probably the biggest one I have.
Probably the only one too.
I'm not going to show all this because it just kind of gets tedious and takes a lot of time, but it is something you can try on your own. There's a couple of other workarounds for a profile that you can't access, where you kind of have a different tool go proxy the access and get it for you. So you would take, copy a link address for Micah's profile page, and you would go to something like Yandex Translate. And Yandex's translator, remember, Yandex is like Russian Google. Yandex's translator will allow you to translate an entire web page just by giving it the URL. And if you give it the URL for a LinkedIn profile, it will pull up the whole page, and it will allow you, it's trying to do a translate for you, but it will give you access to that content. There's definitely been times where I haven't been able to get into a profile without a research account myself. But if I go to Yandex Translate and I pop that URL in, their translator will get access to that page. There's also the mobile friendly test. There's a number of websites. Bing has one where you can put in a URL and it'll say, let us test that website for you to see the mobile responsiveness of it. Like, how would it look on a cell phone and things like that. If you do that with a LinkedIn profile, it will give you the profile picture and kind of the header and stuff like that. So if that's all you need, something like a mobile friendly test might be an option for you as well.
Griffin, I thought maybe we could end this with a final exam. Right.
All right.
All right. We have this person's profile on LinkedIn. I'm not logged in. As you can see, it says sign in over here, join now. Now, when you as an OSINT researcher hit this profile and you want to see behind this to this Jensen Wang's profile, what are you going to do? You're going to stop? No. If your browser shows you content here, look for the X. And when you hit the X, you got it, right? Well, like Griffin said, sometimes websites will show you a bunch of things and redact some other things. When that data is redacted, it depends on how they redacted it. If they're just adding a layer of blurring, we may be able to unblur that. If they're actually replacing the images with blurred images or something, you can't unblur those without additional tools. Here's an example. If I scroll down in this person's profile, we can see there's a whole bunch of stuff here. But you know what? I'm really interested in this guy's education. So if I scroll down, oh, there's experience in education. Oh no, I have to sign in to get at it. But I can see there's stuff over here. Well, let's go ahead and follow the process that Griffin and I have talked about many times. And some of you probably know exactly where we're going, right? We're going to right click and inspect. When we inspect, I'm going to just scroll down a little bit. We're going to mouse over here until I see the certain area that I care about is highlighted. Now, you might have noticed that this says blurred content blur. I'm guessing, now, I'm not a web page developer, Griffin, but if this says blurred content blur and I delete it by right-clicking and delete the element, I may remove that blur. Now, here I have the blurred overlay. I'm going to right click and delete that as well. Now, some of you might have noticed I deleted too much. That's okay.
Man. That's all right.
What do we do? We reload the page. We're back here at the same spot. Let's try that one more time and do it a little bit more tactically. I'm going to pop this down a little bit. This blurred content, I'm going to pop this down. Blurred overlay. Yeah, let's try to just take this one right here. Delete the element. Huh.
Oh, we're getting closer.
There's still blurring there. Let's see if we can blurred list. So we have some sections in there. I wonder if we just delete the words here, Griffin. What would happen?
Let's see.
Whoa, hey, that helps. Now, like I said, it depends on how the website redacts the data. Here, LinkedIn has sent me literally asterisks instead of what school this is. But for those of you that are looking at this right now, I bet you're thinking, I could Google that. I could reverse image search this logo. And we do have some dates here. So it's not a slam dunk. It doesn't give us everything, but it does get us a little further. And again, these are just tools that go in your toolbox. When you see blurring, that's not going to stop you anymore. So I'm hoping that people have gotten some things out. If you've gotten something out of this and learned at least one new thing, give us a thumbs up or a smiley face in the chat just to let us know that you picked up something. And Griffin, where are we going to be again in June?
We're going to be mid-June, June 12th and 13th, near Boston University, actually at Boston University.
Yeah, that's at Boston.
Yeah. Right before the Layer 8 OSINT conference, which is on that Saturday. On Thursday and Friday, Micah and I are teaching a 2-day course there. So if you're watching this on YouTube and it's before June of 2025, take a look at our website, follow the link there, and learn about the class. See if you can make it out. We would love to see you there. And for the rest of you, if you're interested in learning more about some of the topics we talked about, or going deep on search engines or operational security and all those different things, go take a look at our My OSINT Training website and take a look at our course library over there. We offer, I don't know, close to 50 different online lessons there. We also have cost-saving bundles if you want to get a whole learning package together. But we like to do these free and accessible webinars every once in a while for just the general OSINT community, mostly because we really like teaching. I'm sure you can tell we have a fun time with this, but also because we want OSINT to be accessible and we want you to feel like you can get enough information and understanding to go out there and build some skills. It is open source intelligence after all, and there's a lot of great stuff online out there. Of course, you can pay to have somebody build a course for you, but we want to get people interested and excited about the thing that we love, and this is a great way to do that.
So Griffin, before we head out, there are a couple of comments in the stream that I want to just pull up. One person asked, do these techniques work on every platform? The answer is absolutely not. The unblurring, as we saw on LinkedIn, it showed you some of the stuff, but it didn't reveal all of it because LinkedIn was doing redaction more comprehensively for some of the data. Yep. Griffin, a question for you. Can you, when you're using like the web developer tool and you see the image that's displayed in the web developer tool, can you save that to your local system and archive it?
What a fantastic question, and a very astute observer, whoever that was. Yes, actually you can. So hopefully you've seen us demonstrate the fact that stuff, that content is getting loaded in your browser and it is accessible to you on your system, but maybe it's being displayed in a way that's not very friendly to you, right? Maybe it has an overlay on it or a blurring on it or a pop-up box over it and things like that. But because that content is in there, when you come across that line in the source code that has that JPEG or that image that's coming in from the content delivery network, you can actually right click on that hyperlink, open it in a new tab and access it. We actually showed you that without you realizing it when we used the Facebook locked profile bookmarklet earlier in the show, where we accessed the actual image itself behind all of the difficulty that we had from the lock profile feature and put it in its own tab. What we're doing is essentially what you're asking, going in the source code, finding exactly where it comes from and opening that up.
One other question, Griffin. Somebody asked if we could do this every week and maybe start a project called something curious. Your thoughts on that?
I wish I had the time to do all of the fun stuff that I have the ideas for. This is definitely, it's a treat for us. It really is. But as many of you know, we both work for the NCPTF alongside of working for ourselves in the training business here. And we have very busy lives, but being able to do this kind of stuff once in a while is super cool. And we appreciate that you would like more of it. That actually does mean a lot to us.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for coming. As we said, this video is going to stay here on our YouTube channel. So reference it, like it, put
Share
comments in it. And what did you say?
Share it, Micah.
Oh,
social media.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for coming, everybody. We appreciate you. Take care.
Thanks, Bye.